mandrel is a solid, cylindrical rod used for cleaning raceways and verifying their integrity. For underground applications, it should be made of a non-conductive material, such as fiberglass or nylon. The size of the mandrel should be slightly smaller than the inner diameter of the conduit to ensure thorough cleaning. The purpose of using a mandrel is threefold. Firstly, it removes any debris, dirt, or obstructions that may be present inside the conduit after installation. Secondly, it helps to identify any potential damage or defects in the conduit, such as kinks, bends, or collapsed sections. Thirdly, it ensures that the inner surface of the conduit is smooth and free from any sharp edges or protrusions that could damage the wires or cables during the installation. When selecting a mandrel, it is important to consider the size and type of conduit being used. The mandrel should be slightly smaller than the inner diameter of the conduit to allow for easy passage and effective cleaning. For underground applications, a non-conductive material such as fiberglass or nylon is recommended to prevent electrical hazards. The process of using a mandrel involves inserting it into one end of the conduit and pushing or pulling it through to the other end. This can be done manually or with the aid of a rope or cable. As the mandrel passes through the conduit, it scrapes and dislodges any debris or obstructions that may be present. After the mandrel has been pulled through, the conduit should be inspected to ensure that it is clean and free from any damage. Regarding wire and cable pulling equipment, boilerplate language typically does not include requirements for specific gauges or equipment. However, for critical applications or larger conductors, an engineer may specify the use of a pull indicator or gauge to monitor pulling tension. For number 12 copper, a pull indicator with a range of 0 to 200 pounds would be suitable. Pulling tension is an important consideration in wire and cable installation because excessive tension can damage the conductors or insulation. This can lead to premature failure of the wiring system and potential safety hazards. To prevent excessive pulling tension, it is important to use proper pulling techniques and equipment. This includes using lubricants to reduce friction, avoiding sharp bends or corners in the conduit, and using a pull indicator or gauge to monitor the tension during the pull. When selecting a pull indicator or gauge, it is important to consider the size and type of conductors being installed. The gauge should have a range that is appropriate for the expected pulling tension. For smaller conductors, such as number 12 copper, a gauge with a range of 0 to 200 pounds is typically sufficient. For larger conductors, a gauge with a high range may be required. In addition to monitoring pulling tension, it is also important to follow the manufacturer's recommendations for maximum pulling tension. These recommendations are typically based on the size and type of conductor, as well as the type of insulation. Exceeding the maximum pulling tension can damage the conductors or insulation and void the warranty. Moving on to ground resistance measurement, a suitable instrument for measuring ground resistance is a megometer or ground resistance tester. These instruments apply a known voltage and measure the current flowing to determine the resistance to ground. Ensure the tester is calibrated and meets the accuracy requirements specified in the scope of work. Ground resistance is a measure of how effectively a grounding system can dissipate fault current into the earth. A low ground resistance is essential for ensuring the safety of personnel and equipment in the event of a ground fault. To measure ground resistance, a megometer or ground resistance tester is used. These instruments apply a known voltage between the grounding system and the remote ground reference point. The current flowing between these 2 points is then measured, and the resistance is calculated using Ohm's law. There are several different methods for measuring ground resistance, including the fall-off potential method, the slope method, and the stakeless method. The fall-off potential method is the most common method and involves driving 2 ground stakes into the earth at a specified distance from the grounding system. The megometer is then connected to the grounding system and the 2 ground stakes, and the resistance is measured. The slope method is similar to the fall-off potential method, but it involves taking multiple resistance measurements at different distances from the grounding system. The resistance values are then plotted on a graph, and the slope of the graph is used to determine the ground resistance. The stakeless method does not require the use of ground stakes and is typically used in situations where it is not possible to drive ground stakes into the earth. This method uses a clamp-o-meter to measure the current flowing through the grounding conductor and the voltage between the grounding conductor and a remote ground reference point. The resistance is then calculated using Ohm's law. When measuring ground resistance, it is important to ensure that the tester is calibrated and meets the accuracy requirements specified in the scope of work. It is also important to follow the manufacturer's instructions for using the tester and to take appropriate safety precautions. The National Electrical Code (NEC) specifies the requirements for grounding electrical systems. According to NEC Section 250.53 A2, the grounding electrode system must have a resistance to ground of 25 ohms or less. If the resistance to ground exceeds 25 ohms, the grounding electrode system must be supplemented by an additional grounding electrode. Additional information on grounding and bonding can be found in NEC Article 250. The purpose of grounding and bonding is to provide a low impedance path for fault current to return to the source. This helps to trip the overcurrent protective device such as a circuit breaker or fuse, and to energize the circuit in the event of a ground fault. Grounding and bonding also help to reduce the risk of electric shock by providing a path for fault current to flow to ground instead of through a person's body. There are several different types of grounding electrodes that can be used, including ground rods, ground plates, and concrete encased electrodes. Ground rods are the most common type of grounding electrode and are typically made of copper or copper-clad steel. Ground plates are typically made of copper or galvanized steel and are buried in the earth. Concrete encased electrodes are typically made of copper wire or rebar and are encased in concrete. The selection of the appropriate grounding electrode depends on the soil conditions, the size of the electrical system, and the requirements of the NEC. In addition to grounding electrodes, bonding conductors are also used to connect different parts of the electrical system together. Bonding conductors are typically made of copper or aluminum and are used to connect metal enclosures, equipment, and other conductive parts of the electrical system to the grounding electrode system. The purpose of bonding is to create a low impedance path for fault current to flow between different parts of the electrical system. This helps to ensure that all metal parts of the electrical system are at the same potential, which reduces the risk of electric shock. Bonding is also important for reducing electromagnetic interference, (EMI), which can disrupt the operation of sensitive electronic equipment. The size of the bonding conductors depends on the size of the electrical system and the requirements of the NEC. NEC Table 250.102 C1 specifies the minimum size of bonding conductors based on the size of the ungrounded conductors. It is important to follow the requirements of the NEC when installing grounding and bonding systems to ensure the safety of personnel and equipment. Improper grounding and bonding can lead to electric shock, equipment damage, and fires. Regular inspection and testing of grounding and bonding systems are also important to ensure that they are functioning properly. Ground resistance testing should be performed periodically to verify that the resistance to ground is within acceptable limits. Bonding conductors should also be inspected for corrosion or damage. If any problems are found, they should be corrected immediately. Proper grounding and bonding are essential for the safe and reliable operation of electrical systems. By following the requirements of the NEC and using proper installation and maintenance practices, it is possible to minimize the risk of electric shock, equipment damage, and fires. Always consult with a qualified electrician or electrical engineer for specific grounding and bonding requirements.